So if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you probably know that I've always been pretty vocal and pretty critical of smart technology and of tech gadgets in general. Do you know what the difference is between an iPhone 11 and an iPhone 15? About $1,000. 1,000 people that not only paid $500 for a toothbrush, but are willing to publicly admit that they paid $500 for a toothbrush. Fancy touchscreen thermostats pre-installed on the wall, and I gotta tell you, the thing's a total turd. It doesn't work very well. Because in truth, despite their name, I think a lot of them are just dumb. And because I've been nothing if not consistently myself throughout my entire life, here's a Facebook post I made back in 2019. Part of this mindset is rooted in minimalism, where I think that I tend to ruminate and think about the value and the necessity of things a little bit more than average, and probably a little bit more than I actually should. To some extent, I believe that the more plugged in we are technologically, the less connected we are to ourselves, to each other, and to the world as a whole. We sit in restaurants and have our faces buried in our phones rather than being present and talking with the people we're sitting with. We go for walks with earphones in our ears and listen to podcasts so we don't have to say hi to our neighbors. And parents hand tablets to their toddlers to occupy them and shut them up, rather than teaching them how to actually behave appropriately in public. I don't even want to think about how many hours or days of my life I've wasted doom scrolling absolute nonsense on my phone or my computer just to avoid doing something else that I need to be doing. Another part of this comes from a sense of financial responsibility, where I just have a really hard time justifying spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on something that didn't even exist a year or two ago, but is now a must-have. And in a world where so many people are struggling and already living paycheck to paycheck, the idea of people digging themselves further and further into debt to afford these things is just crazy to me. But more than any of that, I just think that a lot of these products are stupid. And I think they're making us stupid too. And lazy, and unhealthy, and socially anxious. Smartphones are basically a necessity by today's standards. Everyone has one, and I think that for the majority of people, it is a practical, useful item to have. Our phones do everything for us nowadays, and for many of us, it's how we organize and run our entire lives. But even still, despite all of the practical features that our phones have, they've had some seriously negative consequences on our mental and physical health, as well as our general productivity. To varying extents, pretty much everyone is addicted to their phone, myself definitely included. And every time that I mention expensive smartphones in a video, there's always some out-of-touch old person in the comments declaring that because he doesn't need a smartphone, nobody does, and he's smarter and more enlightened than the rest of us because he still chooses to use a fax machine or a carrier pigeon or whatever, to which I say, congratulations, we're all really happy for you. For me personally, I do need a smartphone because I run 2 businesses from mine, and I need to be accessible by text and email and social media all day long. I rely heavily on my GPS to get me, well, everywhere because I have a terrible sense of direction and would probably get lost on the way back from the salad bar without it. I need my calendar on hand and synced between my devices because it's quite literally the thing that tells me where I need to be and when. And because I don't have a TV, my phone is pretty much the only place that I get news and weather. But I say that to acknowledge from the jump that for almost every smart tech product that exists, there are certain cases and certain situations and certain people for whom these products genuinely make their lives better and easier and safer or help them earn a living. There's no dispute. Well, except for the infamous $500 Bluetooth toothbrush, that is. But for the majority of people who buy and use these things, that isn't the case at all. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. But before I do, I want to tell you about something that can actually make your life better and easier and keep you healthier too. And that's today's sponsor, ZocDoc. I'll be honest with you, I have a really bad habit of ignoring small health issues until they become urgent and then panicking when I can't get a doctor's appointment at the last moment. One time, I ignored a toothache for a full week until I woke up one morning with a giant swollen lump coming out of my neck. No joke. Apparently, I had an infected wisdom tooth and the infection had migrated into my gland and was going into my bloodstream. And apparently that's really dangerous. By the time that I realized the seriousness of the situation, my dentist was fully booked for the week and I was freaking out. But with ZocDoc, that wouldn't have been an issue. ZocDoc is a free app and website which helps you find high-quality in-network doctors and lets you book appointments directly within the app. We're talking in-network appointments with over 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty. Family doctors, dentists, optometrists, mental health care, you name it. You can find highly rated doctors who are local to you and who take your insurance, and you can generally get an appointment within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes even on the same day. So stop putting off all your doctor's appointments. Head over to ZocDoc.com/accordingtoNicole to book a top-rated doctor today. So besides my phone, I do have a few pieces of smart technology that I've gradually accumulated over the years. I have a smart thermostat that lets me turn the heat or the AC down from my phone if I forget to before I go out, and it lets me turn it back up on my way home so the house is always comfortable when I get back. I have a robot vacuum that I can also trigger from my phone so I can leave home for the day and return to clean floors, and I have a Wi-Fi switch to toggle my patio string lights on and off. All of these products are convenient for sure, but none of them are actually necessary, and while I could argue that they've all improved my life in some way, do you know what else they've done? Made me lazy as shit. 10% of the time that I use my phone to adjust my thermostat, it's because I'm away from home, but the other 90% of the time, I'm just sitting on the couch 5 feet away and can't be bothered to stand up. The robot vacuum is in itself a lazy or time-saving product, depending on how you want to look at it, but as though having a robot vacuum my house for me isn't enough, I can also trigger it from my phone so I don't have to walk over there and hit the button. And the outdoor lights, I can't even justify that one. All I would have to do is just reach outside and hit the button, but now I don't have to reach outside. And all of this could be made worse even still if I had one of those Hey Google or Alexa things, because then I wouldn't even have to reach for my phone. I could just sit on my ass and bark commands at the wiretap from across the room. Hey Alexa, turn off the lights, you bitch. The first time I started to think that technology was getting stupider was when the iPad was first announced. I was in high school at the time, and I remember joking with the other kids about how dumb the name was, and how it's basically just like a giant iPhone that doesn't even make calls, so what's even the point? But when smartwatches hit the market, I was even more perplexed. Why take a tiny version of your phone and strap it to your wrist when you already have a phone, and that phone has to be present in order for the watch to even work? If you get a notification, how long does it take you to get your phone out of your pocket or your bag and look at it? 1 second? 2 seconds? Maybe 3 seconds at most? What would possess someone to spend hundreds of dollars on a redundant device that only attempts to mitigate a problem that was never even a problem to begin with? Are there actually people out there who find reaching into their pocket to be such a hardship? And if so, what's wrong with them? Well, apparently the answer is yes, because as of 2024, there were 450 million smartwatch users worldwide. And anytime I've ever tried to make this argument to somebody who has a smartwatch, they always say the same thing to me. They say, you can't judge if you've never used one, which is fair enough, but I don't have to smoke crack to know it's a bad idea. But recently, I was gifted an Apple Watch, and it's not something I would ever actually buy with my own money, but since it was given to me, I figure I might as well try it out and see, have I actually been missing out? Are smartwatches really as dumb as I think they are, or am I just being overly dismissive and closed-minded? Okay, so I just got this thing, I got all the packaging here, and my first impression, and honestly one of the main reasons that I've never wanted to own one of these things, is that I just think it's really dorky looking. I guess that's subjective, but I've always felt that way. It kind of reminds me of that old movie Spy Kids where they're all talking into their wrist, but in the worst possible, most embarrassing way. Honestly, I just think it's really tacky looking. I've always found it to be an ick when guys wear these on dates. And I guess this is a personal thing, this is a me thing, but I happen to have really, really tiny wrists. I can wrap my pinky and my thumb and touch them around my wrist. So I feel like for me, it just looks all that much bigger and goofier and dorkier and oversized, and I'm just not a fan, to be quite honest. But I guess in theory, if it's really practical and really useful, then maybe none of that matters. So it's been a couple days, I've been wearing this thing, and here are my thoughts so far. For starters, I am still not used to the way that it looks. I still think it looks incredibly goofy, and I feel like I'm wearing a medical device on my wrist, and I don't particularly like it. The thing that I was most optimistic about with wearing this, the thing that I thought might actually convert me to being a believer, is the idea that it could reduce my screen time. I hoped that if I could quickly address or dismiss my notifications right here on the watch without having to reach for my phone, then it might stop me from getting distracted and being sucked into a rabbit hole of doom scrolling. So did that happen? Well, the first night that I wore it, I thought the answer was yes, because my screen time was down about 30% that day compared to usual. But I was also at a concert that night, so I think that in actuality, the reason my screen time was down is because I was out having a good time and not just tinkering with my phone. In the last couple of days since, my screen time seems to be pretty much the same as it always has been. Now, on the topic of addressing notifications, I have to say that messaging on this thing is incredibly annoying. Because the screen is so small, it doesn't give you a keyboard to type on, and I guess it would be impossible to use it if it did. So you have two options if you want to respond to a message on the watch. You can either do voice to text, which I think personally is really obnoxious and cringy if you're in public. I'm just not comfortable doing that, I think it looks douchey. And the other thing you can do is you can use your finger to handwrite each individual letter, and then the watch transcribes it into a text. And it seems to work pretty well, but it's very, very time intensive and very inconvenient. So if I have to respond with anything more than a simple yes or no, I find myself still reaching for the phone to respond to the message, which once again makes the watch kind of pointless. The other thing is that when I was at that concert the other night, as soon as the show started, I got a notification on my watch telling me that the volume was too loud and that it could be damaging to my hearing in the long term. And my response was like, no shit, Sherlock, I'm at a stadium rock show. Like, of course it's loud in here. Obviously, I knew going into that environment it would be very loud. We all know that kind of volume can damage your ears. My question was like, what am I supposed to do with this information? It's telling me that it's loud in here. I'm well aware that it's loud in here. And? Okay, so it's been like two and a half weeks I've been wearing this thing now. Here are my final thoughts. Let's talk about the pros, the things that I actually do like about it. Number one, I would say, is that when I'm driving and I'm using the GPS on my phone, the watch will vibrate to warn me when I have an upcoming turn or I need to change lanes. And knowing that I sometimes don't pay as much attention to the GPS as I should, having this extra little reminder has been nice. I have the watch face set up to show the date and the time, as well as the current weather and my next calendar appointment. And it's definitely convenient to be able to take a quick look and see all that information all at once. But honestly, it only saves me like a few seconds compared to just looking at my phone, so I don't think that makes it worth it. Generally, I do feel a little bit less glued to my phone, but it hasn't actually made a notable difference in my overall screen time. And on the contrary, often when I'm working on something or there's something I need to do without being distracted, I will intentionally leave my phone in another room and go do the task that I need to do. But now that I have this watch, it's now distracting me, even when I've made an effort to stop myself from getting distracted by my phone. I've been wearing the watch when I work out because it pairs with the Trainwell app that I use, and I think I get more accurate metrics that way, but that actually leads to my biggest criticism. I think that for a lot of people, one of the main selling features of these watches is specifically to be able to track all of these various health metrics, to monitor your heart rate, to keep track of your sleep, to see how many steps you've taken in a day. Some of them even monitor your blood oxygen saturation, things like that. But my question is, like, what are we actually doing with any of this data? And I'm not even referring to the fact that these devices are probably selling your personal health data, because I'm pretty sure they are. But I mean specifically, like, once you have all this data available to you, how does it actually benefit you? Like, why do you care? And again, bearing in mind that yes, some people have medical conditions that require them to monitor their heart or whatever other metrics, but I would presume that as it was before smartwatches ever existed, their doctors can give them devices specific for that, or they can buy them at the pharmacy. Or let's say even an Apple Watch, let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it's very accurate. I don't know if it is, but let's say this is a great device for them to have. Fine. But that does not apply to the majority of people who are buying these things, so why are they buying them? If my watch tells me that my heart rate is 85 beats per minute, and I farted 13 times in my sleep last night, and I burnt 200 calories during my workout, cool. But like, what am I supposed to do with that information? I've talked before about the false first step, about the habit that a lot of us have where we set a goal, and then instead of actually working towards that goal, we do things that we convince ourselves are the first steps, but they're actually not. We tell people about our goal, or we watch YouTube videos about other people working towards the same thing, and most notably, we buy things. We buy new running shoes and convince ourselves that's the first step towards starting to go for runs. We buy a bunch of storage containers and tell ourselves that's the first step towards decluttering and organizing our homes. We buy kitchen gadgets and convince ourselves that's the first step towards eating healthier. But it's not. And I think that in this case, smartwatches are largely being purchased by people who think that they'll become healthier and more active by tracking all these random health metrics. They think that having an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or whatever is going to be the thing that helps them lose weight or encourages them to work out when they otherwise aren't motivated to do so. But that's just not how it works. At least not in the long run, not once the novelty factor wears off. And I say this from a purely observational, completely non-judgmental perspective, but I've met many people who are visibly very unhealthy, who are wearing an Apple or an Android watch or a Fitbit or whatever else, and it doesn't seem to be helping at all. There is no data to suggest that health tech products have actually made society healthier in any measurable way. It's almost as if having a little screen strapped to your wrist doesn't make you burn calories.
That's my reward!
Just in the same way that having a robot vacuum hasn't actually made me more productive. It's just given me an extra 30 minutes to rot on the couch and do nothing while my floors get cleaned for me. And the Wi-Fi thermostat probably hasn't saved me much on my energy bill, but it has made me less motivated to get out of bed in the morning when I can heat up the house while I'm still under the covers. All of these products are marketed, not to us, but to our fantasy selves. To the people that we wish we were, but in reality are not. They're marketed in a way to make us believe that owning these things will turn us into the people we want to be. The only thing stopping you from being healthy and fit and rich and successful and productive and popular is a watch, or a speaker, or a fridge with a touchscreen display mounted in the door, or a thermostat, or a vacuum, or a goddamn Bluetooth toothbrush. But not only is it untrue, not only are these products incapable of turning you into something you're not, but they're usually actually doing the complete opposite of what they claim. They give you an undeserved feeling of accomplishment just for buying them, which demotivates you from putting in the actual work towards your goals. They cost you tons of money, which makes you broke, not rich. They make you lazy by doing the most basic things for you that you're perfectly capable of doing for yourself. And they keep you perpetually plugged in, so you never have to interact with other people in the real world. And eventually, you lose the ability to. So for me, I've had this Apple Watch for a few weeks now, and I really genuinely did want to see the light. I wanted to get some kind of benefit from it that would help me understand the hype and really feel a little less old and crotchety. But I didn't. There's very little this watch can do that my phone doesn't already do, and doing everything on this thing is way more annoying than it is to just do it on my phone. And the few things that the watch does that my phone doesn't do just don't seem to be that useful anyways. But hey, maybe that's just me. And if you're somebody who has a smartwatch or really any other smart tech products, I would love to hear your experiences with them. I would love to know which products you think actually bring you the most value and how you use them in your day-to-day life, and any products you might have bought or tried that you realized were not actually useful to you. So leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video at all, please go ahead and hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so yet. You can follow me on Instagram at according_to_Nicole. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.